What's the word I'm thinking of? Hi there. Welcome to the first episode of the Motley Stew Show. What I'm going to do each week is I'm going to talk about things that happened in the previous week. What happened in the last 7 days that is really worth talking about. Maybe we need to dig into it a little bit further. So let's see what the menu is this week. Looks tasty. In the appetizer section, we have the iPhone 6 rumors. The current rumors about the iPhone 6 is it's going to be announced on September 9th, which is actually my late mom's birthday. There are always a lot of rumors about what's going to be announced, and nobody knows for sure. Apple is very tight-lipped about it. But there's a few things that we do know because of things that they've talked about in the past and things they've been leading up to. One is the iPhone 6 is probably going to be coming out in a bunch of different sizes, maybe 2 to 3. There's talks about it coming out with a sapphire glass front. Now, why that's handy for people like myself who have an iPhone, or especially people like my wife who has an iPhone, is it's really, really strong, much stronger than their last glass case or glass front. So you can really do damage to it and not have to replace the front and take it in for repair, spend another $100, whatever. Also, they've talked about wireless charging could be possible, and that would be really neat. It'd be nice not to have wires going around everywhere. Just clean up the clutter on my desk, both next to my bed or in my office or even at my work desk. In terms of the actual guts of the phone, they are talking about a much more powerful A8 processor, so they can handle much stronger apps, much stronger processing speed. It actually is also part of the reason why they're thinking that the phone could deliver console game style graphics and gameplay. So that could be awesome. Another huge push by Apple to kind of steal the game market in a certain respect, at least on mobile. As for those who are holding out for the iWatch, I wouldn't hold your breath. They may say something about it, but I'm sure it's not going to be released. Nobody's talking about it. I still think that's a little bit farther down the line. So that's your appetizer, things to whet your appetite for what's coming. Now, let's move on to the salad. Now, salad is usually about something that's good for you, something that's good for all of us. And one of the things that happened this week that was good for us is Lego introduced a whole new set of scientists. There were 3 of them, but they're all female. Now, they had 1 female scientist before, but now they have 4 in their collection of characters. The reason why this is good is we really need to encourage women to feel like they're valued in the STEM fields. And this is a great way to do it, to teach them from the very early ages that being a scientist is something that they can aspire to and is not just a man's profession. I applaud Lego for the efforts. Now, moving on to the mid-dinner drinks. My idea about the drinks is, let's think about people who drink too much. And let's think about, this is kind of something really stupid that happened this week. Something that people doing it really should just sit back and relax and really think about what their motivations are. Maybe they're just not quite sober. So this week, I'm sure you've all heard about the Ebola outbreak in Africa. Now, as scary as that is, it is one of the worst outbreaks in history for Ebola. At the time that this article was written, there were reported 887 deaths. Now, we have 2 people that were down there, an American doctor and an American missionary, and they have been flown back to the US. That scares some people. It's understandable. Nobody wants a huge Ebola outbreak in the US. It would be terrible. We've all seen the movie Outbreak. We've all seen all the zombie films. We don't want to turn into The Walking Dead. But that's not going to happen. One of the big things about the safety of bringing those people back to the US is, as we like to brag about, we have the best facilities in the world. So why not bring them back? Why shouldn't we care for these people? Another reason why this isn't going to become an epidemic in the US is because it spreads through contact. And it's not airborne. It's not going to turn into like the Captain Jack flu from The Stand. This is not that. And the paranoia around it, it's understandable because the death rate among people who get infected with this is close to 90%, if not all 100%. The 2 people who have been brought back to the US are actually using an experimental drug. Now, it has shown promise, but it never made it to human trials, so they rushed it. And while they're showing good signs, they're working on seeing if they can produce this even quicker and get it down to Africa to help people. Oh yeah, where does the stupid come from? Well, the doctors who are actually treating those people who came back to the US are getting hate mail. They're getting death threats because the people who are writing them think they're bringing back the plague. and that the US is going to be infected and, like I said, turn into the Walking Dead. It's even got to the point where Donald Trump, who can't let a crisis go by without putting some publicity out for himself, said this: "People that go to faraway places to help out are great, but must suffer the consequences." Really? That's compassionate. That really says why we're the best country on earth. Also, for anyone who's been following really closely, the patient in New York, the third case that they thought might already be here in the US, has been deemed negative. So at least we can let that one go. Moving on to the main course. The main course is what I like to think of as probably the biggest story of the week. This week, it was the Benghazi hearings. Now, if you happen to follow politics at all, you've definitely heard about Benghazi. What happened back in Benghazi was there was an attack on an American consulate there, and 4 people died. Now, as terrible as that was, immediately the fights broke out in Washington. The Republicans said that the president didn't do enough to stop it from happening, and that we had intelligence that it was going to happen and didn't listen to it. They also said that we could have sent people to help out in that fight and help save those people. And the biggest part was that they said that there was a stand down order issued, meaning that people who were in the area or close enough to get there to help were told not to go. All that sounds pretty terrible, right? We should be really mad if that was true. But 2 years later, millions of dollars are spent, and just hour and hour and hour out of trials and depositions. The report that finally is coming out says none of that actually happened. Being reported by one of the people who was actually on the panel says this: "It confirms that no one was deliberately misled, no military assets were withheld, and no stand-down order was given." So you would think that this would kind of end the Republican barrage about Benghazi, especially because they're trying to hang it around the neck of Hillary Clinton if she runs in 2016, which we know she's going to do. But did anybody who was part of that come out and say, "We're sorry, we were wrong about that"? I didn't think so. In fact, they're not only not sorry about it, they're doing another investigation. Another panel has been convened with Representative Trey Gowdy at the head, and they're budgeted another $3.3 million. Really, that's a good use of our taxpayer dollars. Moving on to dessert, I like to think of dessert as something that's sweet. It's what we've been waiting for. It makes us feel good. It's full of sugar and loveliness, and oh, I'm gonna drool. So this week, what is too sweet to even handle more than, say, once a day is this video of Taylor Swift. She went to a hospital and visited a kid who's very, very sick, and he has Williams syndrome. She went in there with a guitar, played songs for him, and played with him. If you watch the video, which you should because it'll make you feel good, just get some Kleenex nearby for when the boys start singing along. It's precious. Lastly, I do want to leave you with what I like to call something to chew on. Something, if you had a dinner conversation and it goes really well, and somebody brings up something, and you leave dinner and you think about that for the rest of the night, maybe for the next 2 days, 3 days, it rumbles around in your brain, and you think, wow, that was a really good point. Maybe I want to look into that more. Well, this something to chew on this week is actually an essay that was written by Noah Chomsky talking about the state of nuclear arms. So this is a quote that should keep you thinking for a little bit. If some extraterrestrial species were compiling a history of Homo sapiens, they might well break their calendar into 2 eras. BNW, before nuclear weapons, and NWE, the nuclear weapons era. The latter era, of course, opened on August 6, 1945, the first day of the countdown to what may be the inglorious end of this strange species, which attained the intelligence to discover the effective means to destroy itself, but, so the evidence suggests, not the moral and intellectual capacity to control its worst instincts. That's actually the first paragraph of an essay that he wrote, which if you go through and read the whole thing, will kind of shock you. It talks about how really it's amazing that we've all lived this long after the nuclear weapons were discovered and made, because we've been on the brink of nuclear war many more times than you think we have. Maybe a scary thing to think about, but it is something to think about. Thanks for watching my first episode. Hope you enjoyed it. If you want, you can leave some comments below. Please subscribe for the next episodes. Again, I'm hoping to do these every Sunday. For personal plugs, I'll let you know that actually I finished a review this week of Weird Al's new album, Mandatory Fun. That's out on the blog, so go check it out. And if you haven't listened to the album, it is definitely, in my opinion, one of his best. The guy is at his peak. It's worth checking out. Also, each week, I want to give a shout out to a charity or a nonprofit group that I think is doing really important work. This week, I want to talk about the Central Asia Institute. If you haven't heard of them before, you might have heard of some of the books that have been written by the person who leads it. There was 3 Cups of Tea and Stones into Schools. If you haven't checked out those books, you should. They're really, really important, and they're really, really well written. And so this group, what they do is they take the money and the donations and they build schools in Afghanistan and Pakistan, mostly for young girls. Part of their charter is that when they build these schools, it has to be filled with a certain percentage of girls, because over there, girls' education is really not looked fairly upon. One of the best things about these schools being built is that over there it's not normal that they're taught anything but the religious teachings of whatever religion that particular tribe is trying to push. What they need is schools that just talk about basics of math and science, give these people a chance to do something that's not religiously led. It might open their eyes, it might open their minds, and it might bring more peace and understanding for that part of the world. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the taste. And just before you go, here's a little piece of Logan.
Ready? Gonna be a rock star?
Rockstar.
Rockstar! I'm the greatest!
Yeah.
It's Bat Baby!
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. You need... Bat Baby claims another victim.